Hollow Knight is a wonderful game. Unfortunately though, there's a lot of conflicting information going around these days. Does looking down actually shrink the size of your hitbox? Does Shaman Stone boost the size of all of your spells, or just the fireball? And can you permanently lose access to the unbreakable charms by banishing the Grim Troop early? Let's try to finally answer these questions and a whole lot more once and for all. I'm Holland and this is Hollow Knight Mythbusting. Claim number 1. You can look down to shrink the size of your hitbox. When holding the up or down input on your device, your character's view can be shifted. This is helpful in a few platforming sections, but is more commonly used to hit targets above or below you with a nail or to cast different spells. However, some claim that looking down actually shrinks the size of your hitbox, allowing you to dodge under certain attacks. Where I've heard this brought up the most is in regard to the Mantis Lords. You can go underneath their glaives using Shape of Un, or, as some claim, you can stand in the middle of the screen on a certain pattern and look down to avoid the attack without any charms required. You haven't been misinformed, this is possible, but there's a catch. It doesn't require you to look down. Why? Well, if we enable hitboxes for a moment, it becomes pretty clear. If you look at the yellow rectangle, which indicates the player's hitbox, it doesn't change when I look down. You're just naturally able to fit under this attack if you stand in the right place. Which means this myth is busted. Claim number 2. You can trigger Desolate Dive faster by jumping first. I've heard this one a few times, and it's one of those min-maxing, try-hard optimizing tricks that some of us find so interesting. Basically, if you didn't know, Desolate Dive doesn't need to be cast in the air. You can trigger it directly from the ground, in which case your character will automatically move upwards before casting the spell. However, according to some, doing the jump yourself is actually faster than letting the game do it for you. As such, if you ever want to cast Desolate Dive from the ground, you should always do a little jump first to save some time and get yourself out of danger more quickly. However, after having tested this quite a lot, I'm pretty sure this is nonsense. If we look at these two clips side by side, there's no apparent benefit from one clip to the other. On the left side, I'm using the spell directly from the ground, while on the right, I'm doing a jump first. Now, maybe I'm just bad at the trick and can't figure out how to trigger the spell early enough. And while that might be true, it's also true that a lot of things can go wrong when trying to do this min-max trick. For example, I accidentally fired off the wrong spell a few times, which didn't happen when I was just casting Desolate Dive normally. And especially in a stressful situation, I'm sorry, but this is just not as useful of a trick as you might think it is. Busted. Claim number 3. You can hit Grim when he turns into a bat. I saw this in a video at some point and I was really blown away. It took me beating Grim and Nightmare King multiple times on Radiant before I ever realized that you can actually hit him during the bat phase, just like a regular staggered boss. Well, not exactly, he's a lot harder to hit, but still, it's a great thing to know. Confirmed. Claim number 4. Shaman Stone increases the size of all spells. Just before we get to that, I'm excited to share with you that this week I'm releasing a Hollow Knight video every day for 7 days straight with a special drop at the end. So if you want to support the channel for free while also getting access to this content right as it comes out, please consider subscribing. Thank you so much. Now back to Shaman Stone. This is such a common myth and I've never been quite sure what to believe. I started out thinking, of course Shaman Stone would increase the size of all spells, then being told otherwise, then having that belief questioned by a skeptical group of YouTube commenters. Gosh, I just don't know what to believe anymore. Does Shaman Stone apply a size increase to all spells, or just Vengeful Spirit and Shade Soul? It seems like such an easy question to answer just by, putting on the charm. It's pretty clear that the regular Fireball is significantly larger with Shaman Stone. But perhaps since the two other spells are quite large already, it's harder to tell whether they're actually impacted or not. So let's finally answer the question, does Shaman Stone increase the size of all spells? Take a look at these clips. Doesn't look like it, does it? Although it's a bit strange, it appears as if Shaman Stone only increases the size of Vengeful Spirit and Shade Soul, so this theory is busted. Claim number 5. You can send off elevators without standing in them. If you didn't know, the nail used to be a lot shorter than it is today, but it was tweaked throughout development, which eventually made it possible to hit enemies through platforms. Yes, that was originally not intended. Pretty crazy. So with that in mind, and especially considering we now have both Long Nail and Mark of Pride to increase the size of the nail even further, I wondered to what degree it was possible to break the game by hitting things from weird locations. For example, in regard to triggering elevator switches while not inside the elevator. Well, it turns out you don't even need any charms to do this. Just stand at the edge of the elevator and hit the switch. And sadly, nothing happens. You can't trigger elevators illicitly. Busted. Claim number 6. There's no time pressure after collecting the King's Brand. Perhaps the tensest story-related moment in Hollow Knight is when you get the King's Brand and must flee the collapsing cast-off shell. Well, besides from being lightly damaged by some falling debris, this part is all bark and no bite. You're not in a rush at all. So just take your time and leave the shell at your own pace. Claim number 7. The spiky husk does not produce spikes after dying if killed with spells. I know you were all dying for this one. Sorry, I have to throw this one in here just to get it out of my system. But no, killing a spiny husk with spells does not trigger its death rattle effect of staying on the ground post-mortem. It removes the threat entirely, which is quite handy. Confirmed. Claim number 8. You can hit supports and switches from the wrong side. Another myth related to my curious obsession with nail-length shenanigans. I didn't know whether the game could test for obstructions in between you and a target, so I wanted to test if you could hit switches and supports through a wall. For enemies, there's clearly no trigger keeping you from doing this. But sadly, in regard to switches and wooden planks, at least in the areas I tested, no matter how long your nail is, you can't hit them through solid objects. You need to be on the correct side. So, busted. Claim number 9. Boulder Shell can block damage right as you finish healing. Okay, this one's pretty cool. I read somewhere that you can actually finish healing while also successfully using Boulder Shell to block an incoming attack. You just have to time it at the very end of the healing animation. Alright, so here we go, taking damage, and it looks like it didn't work. But look at this. Voila! See how I didn't take any damage there? Well, if you do the glitch correctly, and yes, it's probably a glitch, the health you restore becomes invisible. So the next time you take damage, it looks like you didn't take any damage at all. That means effectively it works. You can trigger Boulder Shell while healing at the same time. Confirmed. Claim number 10. You can exit Soulmaster's arena through the ceiling. When you beat the Soulmaster, you're forced to go through a newly opened path to get back to the City of Tears. But have you ever wondered if you could just return from the way you came, up through the open ceiling? Well, it's clearly impossible without the Monarch Wings, which most people won't have at this point. But it's not too difficult to save the Soulmaster fight for later on, where you do have the wings. And now you can escape through the ceiling, right? Because there is no ceiling? Well, sadly, that's not entirely true. Enabling hitboxes reveals this giant, strangely shaped polygon blocking our vertical ascent. So no matter how hard you try, it sadly isn't possible to escape the Soulmaster fight by going through the ceiling. Busted. Claim 11. You can Dreamnail Oro before the fight begins. Light spoilers for the first 2 Pantheons ahead. If you want to skip these spoilers, go to Myth 13 using the chapters below. All good? Alright, well, most of you will know that you can Dreamnail Oro and Mato once Mato arrives. It's a dandy way to recharge your soul capacity in preparation for the final phase of the fight. However, that raises the question, can you hit just Oro with your Dreamnail at the very start of the match? It would only make sense. If you're really quick, you can charge up a Dreamnail before he roars. If not, you can equip Dreamwielder, which makes it a lot easier. In either case though, he doesn't give any soul. A very strange inconsistency, but oh well. Busted. Claim number 12. Shio's apron gets magically cleaned when his fight begins. Yes it does. Confirmed. Claim number 13. Banishing the Grim Troop while Divine has a charm in her belly deletes the charm. Okay, buckle up. These last myths are some of the most important ones to answer. I was really curious what happened if you gave Divine one of your charms before banishing the Grim Troop. If you don't know, you can choose to either complete the Grim Ritual or banish the troop with the help of Brum. If you complete the ritual, Grim's tent disappears, but importantly, Divine's tent doesn't, at least not immediately. However, her tent does disappear if you instead banish the troop. So what happens if you had given one of your fragile charms to Divine before banishing her? Do you just lose it forever? Well, thankfully not. It drops on the ground for you to pick up. But wait, does that mean? Claim number 14. Banishing the Grim Troop can prevent you from getting the unbreakable charms. Yes, it can. As you can see here, although I get my fragile heart back, all of my charms are still fragile. So if you're going to banish the Grim Troop, which you might want to since that gives you the carefree melody, remember to forge the unbreakable versions of all your fragile charms first, or else you're locked out of getting those permanently and you'll have to make a brand new save. Confirmed. And finally, claim number 15. Traitor Lord is not the best fight in the game. You might not believe it, but this is actually a really common myth, held by almost every player. And well, looking at the footage you're seeing right now, I think it's pretty obvious that this theory has to be busted. So now you can stop spreading this vicious misinformation. You're welcome. Thanks for watching. If you have any fun myths to share, let me know down in the comments. Maybe I'll do another episode and try to include your suggestion. And remember to subscribe for the next 4 days of consecutive uploads. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful day.